Happy Wednesday. Welcome in. Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. Brendan Glasheen joined by two of our Action Network baseball contributors. Sean Zerillo, you can find his opening pitch right up over at Action Network, actionnetwork.com each and every day during the MLB postseason. And Tanner McGrath joins us as well to break down this one-game MLB playoff game that we have on this Wednesday. It is NLCS Game 3. We are going to New York. We've got the Mets hosting the LA Dodgers. Luis Severino on the mound for the Mets, facing Walker Buehler and the Dodgers. Gentlemen, Sean, good to talk to you again. I know it's been a bit for us both together here. I'll go to you first here. It's about a pick'em price with Buehler pitching for the Dodgers. The total's at 7.5. Seen some folks come in on the over for this game. It's a big spot here for Severino. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be cold tonight, too, and curious how Walker Buehler, the Dodgers, handle the chilly temperatures in New York all the time, right? We talk about in football, the Dolphins going north. I remember back in the day when the Dolphins used to go to Green Bay and play the Packers. They had this horrendous record anytime the temperature had dipped below 50 degrees. I was trying to mess around with Action Labs filters last night to see the Dodgers, other California teams, when they play in sub 50 degree temperatures, if there's anything indicative there. Couldn't really find anything. And Walker Buehler starts, though. Walker Buehler starts where it's not warm. He does have a losing record and a negative ROI. So maybe something with grip, for Walker Buehler, a Texas guy pitching in New York in chilly temperatures. There definitely could be something there. But as I said, going to be chilly and the wind's going to be blowing in. So Citi Field, which typically plays about 8% below the major league average, is going to play maybe double that tonight, closer to 15% below the league average. And I thought the opening numbers for this game were very interesting. I keep an eye on 5-6 different books, look for their opening odds as the previous game in a series ends. FanDuel was first to market on this game. They hung an over 6.5, minus 110 each side. And then the other books started putting up 8s. And then FanDuel very quickly pulled down their 6.5 because I would imagine some people bet over 6.5 aggressively there and under 8 aggressively elsewhere. And I took some under 8. I projected this total at 7 with the wind, with the weather. And I'd bet this down to 7.5 minus 108, which is roughly where the market is. Now, FanDuel, after they pulled that 6.5 down, they didn't go to 8 with everybody else. They put a 7.5 up, saying the rest of the market is going to come down to 7.5 here. And sure enough, it has. So I wouldn't bet the under past 7.5 minus 108. I think at this point, you wait, you see how Buehler looks early. If Buehler gives up some early runs, if this total goes up to 9.5 live, you take a live under. I think that's how you bet it at this point if you can't get the 7.5 at minus 108. In terms of the side, I make the Mets minus 111 here. The market got up to about minus 110 last night. It's come down, though. You can get minus 102 or even money on the Mets today. I'd play that to minus 105. Why do I like that? Well, Walker Buehler is nowhere near the pitcher who got Cy Young votes a couple of years ago. He's fourth in Cy Young voting in 2021, but he had Tommy John. He had 16, 17 starts, including his playoff start since Tommy John surgery, and his velocity has just not come back. His velo is down from 96.5 to 95 miles an hour. His stuff plus rating is down from 138 at his peak to 94 this season. 100 is league average. So he used to be one of the best pitchers in baseball in terms of stuff. Nick Pivetta was the major league leader this year at 135. Buehler used to be at 138. Now he's below average. His walk rate is up. His location plus ratings are down. I'd kind of lean for him to come out before 14.5 outs today. There's plus money on that prop. My concern is that the Dodgers threw their bullpen game in game 2, and they used Landon Knack and Brent Honeywell, and I think it's Robert Enriquez for 140 pitches combined. So they don't really have long relievers today between Buehler and their high leverage guys. Their high leverage guys are rested, but they need to find a way to get the ball to them. And I think even if Buehler gives up some early runs, as long as this is not like a close game and he's in a jam in the 4th or 5th inning, I think he may get out there or get left out there for 15 outs. So I was tempted by the under on Buehler. I'm going to pass. I'm curious to hear Tanner's thoughts on Buehler's under. I do like the under on Severino's strikeouts. As I've discussed numerous times, the Dodgers offense was not healthy for much of the year. They didn't have their full group of players together for most of the season. They did for the final 6 weeks once Max Muncy came back. Freddie Freeman, I know he's still a little bit hobbled, but over the final 6 weeks, the Dodgers led baseball with a 135 WRC plus against righties, or 135 overall, 133 against righties. But their strikeout rate really lowered in that time as well. On the year, they rank about 16th in strikeout rate against righties, 23%. Over that 6-week span with a fully healthy lineup, they rank 4th at 19%. So you take Severino's outs prop, which is at 16.5. You take his hits prop, which is 4.5. You take his walks prop, which is 2.5. That's 23.5 batters. If you're going to match up that 23.5 batters with a 19% strikeout rate, that gets you to about 4.5 strikeouts. I'd put him closer to 22.5, which would be coming out before facing Freddie Freeman a third time. I think that's closer to his median or his mean. So Sevy under 4.5 strikeouts of plus money. The Mets up to minus 105. And then the under 7.5 to minus 108. Or wait for live under. That's how I would approach Mets and Dodgers game 3.
All right, good stuff there on the total. That's fascinating. And the Buehler component, the weather component, the Dodgers being in New York in a cold time of year. Well, we're not used to the Dodgers getting this far the last couple of years. Normally, they're getting bounced in the division series, and they get to play someone that's still in the same climate-ish as them. Tanner McGrath, what do you think? You like the Mets tonight?
I do like the Mets, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Zerillo said on this game with a few extra notes. So to start, yeah, I think the Mets should be considerable favorites at home in a Severino versus Buehler matchup. You know, if they're minus 110 or better, I think they should be minus 120. I would project them higher than Zerillo. The crucial part of this handicap for me is Walker Buehler, and Zerillo said most of it. He's been a main fade candidate of mine for months. I think his arm looks cooked. His velocity dropped considerably in September. He had a start against the Rockies where he was sitting 93.5. He sat, I think, 94.8 against the Padres in that disastrous game 3 start in the NLDS. He's lost 2 inches of ride on his four seam over the past 2 or 3 seasons. The stuff plus marks on his secondary pitches have dropped like 20 points over the past few years. He lost a couple of inches of break on his curveball and his sinker. And the swinging strike rates on everything have collapsed. And his batted ball numbers are merely average. So he's allowing more contact. And it's generally, average to above average contact. We're talking this year, a 270 expected batting average and a 370 weighted on base average. Not to mention, as Zerillo talked about, his command's gone down the drain. 9% walk rate or something like that. He walked 10 guys across 26 September innings. He's cooked, I think. Something's wrong with him. He's still injured. I don't know if we'll see him back next year, but he does not look good right now. And I know that Citi Field is a pitcher's park, and I know that WRC plus is a park-adjusted stat, but in Queens, during the second half against right-handed pitching, the Mets posted a whopping 127 WRC plus. That was the third best mark among MLB offenses in that split, and they crushed fastballs. 26 weighted fastball runs created. That ranked 6th among all baseball lineups this year. And they posted an 800 team OPS against right-handed four-seam fastballs this season. They're a relatively patient lineup. They rank above average in pitches per plate appearance seen, 9%, 10% walk rate. I think this is a brutal matchup for Buehler, who already is struggling and now faces a red-hot Mets lineup that's going to smash his fastball and stay patient with his lack of command. And as Sean aptly mentioned in his breakdown and in his opening pitch column today, read that on the website or the app, the Dodgers need innings from him because all their long relievers are cooked. Like he said, Knack threw 50 pitches. Honeywell threw 50 pitches. I think it's actually Enrique Hernandez. Doesn't matter. He threw 40 pitches. Brazier threw 20 pitches. Yeah. Banda threw 20 pitches. Now, I like Sean's look at maybe a live under because if the Dodgers get to their high leverage relievers, those guys are all rested and they have been awesome in the playoffs. They were good in September. I think they've been a generally undervalued unit over the past few months, especially since Michael Kopech kind of took that next step with his stuff. They've been really, really good. But can they get there? Buehler might have to face this lineup 3 times, and that would be a disaster. And one guy I think to target in props for this matchup would be Pete Alonso. I know he's a big name, but he hasn't hit all that well during these playoffs. Some of his prop lines could be a tad deflated. I think I saw an over 1.5 total bases at like plus 160, which seems that's pretty high for Alonso. He is 5 for 14 lifetime off Walker with 4 home runs and just a 13% whiff rate, 98 mile per hour average exit velocity. And he's your typical fastball slugger, expected slugging over 550 on four seamers this year, plus 17 run value. He's struggled against sliders, but he's mostly plus hitter against everything else. And Buehler doesn't throw that many sliders or sweepers. Now, the Mets do have some bullpen issues. Like Diaz, Maton, Stanek, they threw 80 pitches in game 2, I believe. But the Mets still have options. I think they have a relatively deep relief corps. Like Budo, Garrett, Peterson, they haven't thrown since Sunday. McGill is well rested. He hasn't thrown in forever. And do we really trust Edwin Diaz anyways? Like I don't think he's looked that good all year. He's very high variance. He's volatile. And someone like Garrett, like Reed Garrett, might be my favorite reliever of the bunch. He's also a little high variance because of some control and command stuff, but he strikes out so many guys. And before that, I like Luis Severino. I thought he impressed me on the whole this year, especially after a couple of down years in the Bronx. His second half was less than ideal, but he's vastly improved his pitch to contact numbers since he started throwing that sinker, like Sean talked about. The sinker, it lowers his ceiling because his stuff and his strikeout stuff isn't as high, but it gives him a much higher floor. He's less prone to blowups like someone like Walker Buehler is. That guy can blow up because he's going to try and throw fastballs by you, and if someone makes contact, it's out of the park. And Severino's pitch to contact style, adjustment to that sinker, could really work at the pitcher-friendly Citi Field. Pitching to contact at the 4th worst run environment in baseball is not a bad idea, especially on a super cold, low-scoring run environment night like this. Sean talked about it. 45, 50 degrees, winds blowing in. So it sort of makes sense that Severino posted a sub-3 ERA in 100 innings at Queens this year. Sub-300 weighted on base average allowed. So also, the Dodgers are slightly worse lineup on the road. I don't know if that means anything. Maybe 5 to 7% worse in the second half against righties. And like Sean talked about, Dodgers are kind of a soft team. I don't know if they'll be able to go up to Queens in 50-degree temperatures and just bash the ball around like they do back in Chavez Ravine all the time. I really like this matchup for the Mets. I think they should be considerable favorites. I will happily snatch up minus 104 at FanDuel, minus 105. I'd play it up to minus 110. I love this game for them.
Dave Roberts has not been shy to go to Michael Kopech on the earlier side too. Just
That's
throw
true.
that out there. Yeah. Well, I've been thinking to that Padres game 5 or 4. No, 5. It was 5 with the bullpen game. Kopech was used in the 7th, I think, but he's caught, or maybe it was earlier than that. But Kopech has been a guy that he'll go to on the earlier side. That
would be the smart move too. The smart move would be to play your bullpen aggressively, play your higher leverage guys aggressively, but it's still relatively early in the series, and maybe
true 7 versus 5, no doubt.
Out of Buehler, that would be the move. The problem is if he faces the lineup a third time, that's going to be a very dangerous, precarious position for the Dodgers. And that's where I see the most value in the Mets, I guess you could say, on this game. I think that's a huge advantage for them.
Yeah. Oh, Kopech hasn't pitched yet in this series. They haven't used him yet.
Yeah, they haven't had to use their high leverage guys because they had a blowout and win in game 1 and then fell behind in game 2. Use guys like Bandit to keep themselves in it. Dave Roberts had a pretty good minute game interview where he was like, we just want to get their high leverage relievers in and get a look at them. And they did. You know, they got what they wanted out of game 2, which was get the Mets' best pitchers in, make them throw pitches, and also get some at-bats off of them. So ultimately, even though they fell behind 6-0, they did complete their goal over the rest of that game, which was to make it more competitive. But yeah, the Dodgers, their high leverage guys are well rested, but as Tanner and I both discussed, they don't have a bridge today. They need Buehler to get through 5 innings to be able to get to those guys because they don't have a long reliever to be able to eat the 3rd and 4th inning.
Yeah, I'm thinking back game 4 before Yamamoto pitched. Kopech pitched in the 3rd inning. Excuse me. So that was
Tanner brought up Tyler McGill too. You know, I feel like the Mets may save McGill for game 5 instead of Senga. Senga looked awful, but his stuff, the velocity was also down against the Dodgers. So I think there's a chance they're looking at McGill to maybe replace Senga for game 5 rather than using him as a long reliever. And David Peterson, I don't necessarily, another thing to Severino's potential usage today, David Peterson threw 40 pitches on Sunday. He's only had 2 days of rest. They like him to neutralize the Dodgers lefties. He does have good lefty-righty splits. As I said with Severino, he's better against righties than lefties, which is unexpected for a right-handed pitcher. But I don't think Peterson is necessarily available tonight, after throwing so many pitches on Sunday. And he would be the other option to replace Senga in a potential game 5. So the Mets do have some decisions to make regarding Senga, but also Tyler McGill and David Peterson. And I don't think I would expect Peterson to be in tonight's game.
At least they have options, though. The Dodgers don't have many options tonight. They need Walker. At least the Mets can sit there in the 4th inning and think about how to approach the end of this game. The Dodgers they're just hamstrung, and I think that's going to end badly. I think that's going to end poorly, personally.
Yeah, it should have, in my opinion, in the last round. They pitched the bullpen game correctly in the last round, right? You go high leverage, get a lead, and then just figure it out from there. I didn't really get bringing Landon Knack in as the second pitcher, trailing 1-0 in game 2.
Nope.
You put in the guy. Yes, he had to throw innings in that game at some point. But in my opinion, if you're going to play the bullpen game, pitch it backwards. Just pitch your best guys first.
Interesting. So Walker Buehler on the innings, no official play on the over.
No, I would lean under 14.5, but because of those long relievers being used up, I think there's just a chance, unless it's like a 2-2 game in the 5th inning and he gets in a jam, maybe that's when he comes out. But if he's up 3, if he's down 3, I think he's staying in through 5. So,
okay, yeah, I would lean over, but but the reason why I'm not going to bet it is because he's prone to blowing up. He could give up 6 runs in the 2nd inning, and then you have to pull him.
Right.
So, but then they didn't in the last game. He settled in, and they let him pitch 5 anyway.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So he could. I think he has blow up potential, but the Dodgers want him to go 5 or 6 innings. They need him to go 5 or 6 innings. So you can't play that. But I do like this Severino strikeouts look because of that sinker usage, and also I like Severino compared to Walker with the extra sinker usage because this is a reason why I like the Mets more. Is that using your sinker limits the amount of pitches you have to throw because you force more ground balls, and it's how guys like Sandy Alcantara can work through so many innings, like sinker ballers like that. So it actually allows the Mets more flexibility with their slightly extended bullpen. So I like that angle too on the Mets. There's a lot of reasons why I like the Mets tonight, but
okay, especially if with the series tied 1-1, this is going to go at least 5. The Dodgers got to get the long relief thing straightened out between now and third. Well, they're playing every day. They're playing today.
Yeah, they'll go Thursday. Yamamoto in game 4, Flaherty in game 5. So they really just they can't burn the bullpen out too aggressively today. They need Buehler to eat some innings. But then they get their best 2 starters in games 4 and 5. So to that point, actually, I did bet the Mets exact order bet at 28-1 to win games 3, 6, and 7, with the Dodgers to win games 4 and 5. That was 28-1. Again, not winning the starts against Yamamoto and Flaherty, but winning both potential starts against Buehler, games 3 and 7, and then also winning game 6 with Sean Manaea on the mound. You'll need the road teams to win the final 4 games in the series, but 28-1 on the Mets to win the series in 7 with their best pitching matchups. I thought that was an interesting play. There's also just straight value on the Mets in 7 at plus 500 or the Mets in 5 at plus 850. If you can get either of those numbers, I made those plus 794 to win in 5 and plus 493 to win in 7.
I love that exact order play because I love Sean Manaea right now. I think he's cooking.
Giving the Dodgers their two best chances with Yamamoto and Flaherty. I just think it's an interesting path. Obviously, it's so juiced up because the final 4 games would be won by road teams, but in terms of the matchups, I think it gives the Mets their best chance. Game 3, also the only game where I'll actually favor the Mets in the series. I'll make the Dodgers favorites every other game. They should be lined as the favorite in every other game, but 55% with Yamamoto against Quintana, 52% for Flaherty against Peterson. I put Peterson in there instead of Senga. And then 56% Manaea versus bullpen, 55% for Buehler against Severino back in Los Angeles for a potential Game 7. So I'd be happy to bet the Mets in Game 7, assuming Buehler will be pitching against Luis Severino again. And I would imagine that line will probably be about plus 130.
All right. Dodgers. So Mets in games 3, 5, and 7. Dodgers in 4 and 6.
Yeah.
28-1.
Mets in games 3, 6, and 7. Dodgers in games 4 and 5 at plus 2,800.
Right. That makes sense. Right. Because you said the road team is in every game.
Dodgers, Mets.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Thank you. My NBA mind is kicking in with the 2-2-1-1-1 format. But anywho, that's it. Good stuff. Sean Zerillo, find his opening pitch article each and every day during this MLB postseason at Action Network, actionnetwork.com. Succinct breakdown on both of these series. We've got Tanner McGrath joining us as well throughout this MLB postseason as we make our way to the World Series. Thursday's game between the Guardians and Yankees. We'll have a payoff pitch episode coming your way tomorrow. We're here every weekday when there is an MLB playoff game, so we're here all week. We'll get that out to you first thing tomorrow with the game being just after 5 o'clock Eastern time. For Sean and Tanner, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in. Payoff Pitch is Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you next time.